right? It's like, what's true? That's what matters. And I feel that is a real failing of the report and of Max in general talking about this. He's more concerned about how he feels about it rather than what the truth is, in my perspective.
That's the most charitable review of the article I've heard so far.
Yeah,
You would call it a schizoid manifesto full of lies and deceit.
Okay.
I want to go back to the drama
Take
thing
it.
for a second because Chud, like, I like drama. That's not a big deal. I find this understanding how people think is useful in the drama realm. Like, obviously in the Mr. Girl stuff, I would say, you know, Mr. Girl is just ideologically captured by his own biases and doesn't understand how human beings think enough to escape those biases. So I still think it's useful in the drama realm. Do you disagree, or?
Well, no, okay. I guess I hate the idea of someone listening to me and going, oh, this guy's jerking off to his own brain, because I'm British. We're very reserved over here. We're very we make jokes about ourselves and stuff. So, but yeah, sure. I agree. I do these things called rape reviews. Have you ever heard of a rape review before?
You review rapes?
Yeah.
That's okay.
No, I've never heard of this.
This is, these are rapes that you're committing, or?
No, obviously not. That would be a conflict of interest. I couldn't review my own rape, but what I can do is someone comes out with a twitlonger, and you look at it and you go, right, what evidence has been provided? What actions have they taken? What is actually being accused? And then, you come to certain conclusions about what's going on and give your take on it. Because we've moved from trusting the legal system with some of these things to the court of public opinion. And my take on it is I probably can't affect that, but at least I can give my take into the ether to, at least make it so someone just doesn't get hauled over the coals when they haven't necessarily done something that wrong, or there isn't evidence provided to say they've done anything that wrong.
Who was the raper in the Destiny stuff? Because that's what Max's article was about, right? It was, first of all, it was as long as like War and Peace. I saw you reviewing it, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I watched maybe like 15 minutes of it and then moved on to something else. And then I came back like 10 hours later and it's still going. Like, you're still streaming.
Right.
So you did multiple streams on that, right?
I did, yeah, because I started reading it and I thought, and then people started paying me a bunch of money. I was like, fuck, I might as well continue if I'm going to keep making money. And then I ended up making like $6,000 or $7,000 off of it.
That's
I think because it's such a mammoth feat. It's like, it's almost like climbing Mount Everest in some ways, some might argue. But harder, intellectually at least. Yeah, harder if anything.
It was your Vietnam.
But yeah, I mean, it was obviously a very lengthy article. I think that there's this post hoc rationalization I've seen of, oh, well, that was what it was always going to be. It was always going to be just listing some of the bad things that Destiny's done to try and paint a pattern of behavior. Obviously, I used to be friends with Max, so I do have somewhat of an inside track into some of the dynamics at play. And my understanding was that it was going to be more of a Harvey Weinstein style expose. And that was how it was very heavily worded at the start. But it turned out not really being a Harvey Weinstein expose. It was just, here's some bad, condemnable things that Destiny's done, some of them over a decade ago. Here's how he treated Lav, which obviously I do not really agree. I think Lav is Lav at the end of the day. The Anna stuff, which I've said the Anna sexting thing was obviously a retarded thing. I can't believe that happened. But yeah, the thing is, there's little pieces in there that I would be critical of, and I'd say, yeah, I think this is dumb. I think this is wrong. But broadly, as an overall article, when it was supposed to be a Harvey Weinstein expose, didn't really seem to meet what that was. Right. So it's like massively underwhelming compared to what I was expecting it to be. But then I'd been following it, so I knew that what it was supposed to be had sort of backslid away from that expose to being what it ended up being.
That's the most charitable review of the article I've heard so far.
Well, I mean, the thing is
you would call it a schizoid manifesto full of lies and deceit.
Okay.
Doomer, can you put the old background up? Can you put Chud's old background up?
Sure.
Just because I have like I've got Chud Logic commentary streamer and Chud Logic media commentary.
Okay.
It's perfect.
I mean, I think, I don't want to suck my own dick. Okay. But what I will say is I feel like I have been quite uniquely placed to cover this because I obviously used to be friends with Max. And as revealed in some of the article, me and him have had personal and private conversations about some of this stuff. But obviously what was left out of the article, because it looks shit and stupid for Max, is that I warned him numerous times and told him, be careful if you're covering drama. I'll speak to you about what I think happened between you and me, so I can give you my take on it. So I've had a bit of an inside insight into the way it's gone. And it's funny seeing in the article, like him talking about the Vosh stuff. That is more or less exactly what he said to me privately months ago, which my response was, that isn't really what happened. You're not giving an accurate reflection of the drama as it happened.
You don't want to suck your own dick, or you can't suck your own dick?
I mean, can anyone suck their own dick?
No, I get what you're saying about the and this is what I was talking about how people think, because a lot of times our biases are what get in the way of us being able to accurately perceive reality. So you're telling Max, Mr. Girl, that you've got a different take on the actual situation, the facts on the ground, but he's not able to believe you for some reason. Like he doesn't necessarily think, he thinks your view of the picture is completely incorrect.
Well,
yes,
he's just delusional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, that's what you're trying to avoid right there.
Well, let me give you an example. So Chud just watched the Kodology conversation, right? So Chud just watched the Kodology conversation. Max said in that everybody that he thinks highly of agreed with the report. And then like 5 minutes later, he says that he thought highly of Kodology, but she's sitting there criticizing the report. So he's like, I don't think highly of you anymore.
No,
I mean,
way.
It's just like a yeah, it's just a self-verifying thing. If you disagree with him, he just won't respect your opinion anymore. So
I've seen that. Yeah. I guess I feel like we're being hypercritical of Max, and Chud is a little uncomfortable with that, which
well, okay. I guess the level, it's not, I don't, you can call Max whatever you like. Okay. I know you've got a history with calling Max certain things. I watched your discussion with him. We don't need to get into that now. Okay. I think I was quite critical of you at the time, and I probably still would be, but we don't need to get into that.
Nice.
Okay. Listen, all I want to say is this, right? This is the problem with Max, and this is where I feel I've got a bit more of a different insight. Max feels a certain way about something, and he wants you to understand that's how he feels about it, right? Now, this gets into what you're talking about, because to me, I don't care how someone feels about something. I care what is true, what you can prove, and what the narrative as it happened.
Based.
Like, that to me is more important than how you feel. And this is why I keep saying, Mr. Girl has become like a leftoid to me. Now, you could apply his criticism to the right too, but my experience, this is what I think of, is like the leftoid conception of like, well, I feel a certain way about it. There's a truth to that. It's like standpoint epistemology shit, right? And, like from my perspective and my experience, this is what I think about it. That makes it true in some way, whatever it is. I don't really care about that, right? It's like, what's true? That's what matters. And I feel that is a real failing of the report and of Max in general talking about this. He's more concerned about how he feels about it rather than what the truth is, in my perspective. Yeah,
he almost... I mean, he's almost proud of that. I constantly hear him say, these are my feelings. I like to wear my feelings on my sleeve. This is what people are here for. They're here for my feelings. And I'm like, I mean, to some extent, we want to understand who you are as a human being. But when you start becoming unmoored from reality, I tend to think, as a streamer, as a commentary person, you kind of lose respectability with the wider community and ultimately with your audience. Like, people are here to hear takes that have some semblance of the real world, or they just want to be spoon-fed, whatever their ideology is, right? Like, what thing can I confirm for you today? What bias can I make you believe is the way the real world is? That happens a lot too.
Yeah.
What's
funny about the article?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, what's funny? I was going to say, what's funny about the article is that hasn't even Destiny's haters haven't come out and given weight to the article.
Oh, now, really?
Oh, man. No, there's not a single person that hates Destiny I've seen come forward to go, yeah, look at this article. This guy's really bad. And these are people that have consistently shit on Destiny repeatedly.
Well, Carissa Avalon is the only one.
Yeah. Oh, what Hunter? Oh, sorry. I mean Hunter Avalon's wife. Sorry, I feel bad saying that. But
how dare you use her real name?
There was some woman Destiny was talking to last night that was like, she seemed to believe that everything Destiny did was wrong.
Wait, Brittany Simon?
No, I don't know who it was. It was like this horrible struggle session. It was a struggle to listen to.
Was it Katie?
It might have been. But she seemed to
Destiny
buy it.
will sometimes has like a sort of a heel, retarded heel that he brings on to. Katie seems to be fitting that role at the
To be
moment.
retarded, yeah.
Basically, yeah. But the thing is, there's definitely like, obviously, Destiny is not a fucking impeccable person that's completely beyond reproach. There's absolutely things that, you know, he has done that are wrong, and you can criticize. But it just feels like rather than just do that, Max has got to paint it as this behavior and put the moral impetus on you to cut contact with him or cut ties with him, which I just don't think is meaningfully proven by the arc.
Have
at
you
all.
talked to Max since you dropped this and you streamed on it?
No, not at all.
Okay. I'm curious, like, if he's gonna be, is he gonna be upset that basically after all of his work, you've profited the most from it and not him?
You probably won't admit that, but when he asked about it on a stream, he seemed a bit perturbed by
I
it. Let's put
bet.
it that way.
Why didn't he do a video? Why didn't he like read it himself?
Because he wants the words to exist on the page so you read them in your own head, in your own voice, to see how bad they are.
I heard
Okay.
that, and that seemed like a little I fucked up cope after the fact narrative.
Mm.
Like maybe he didn't really think it through and then just was like, oh yeah, this sounds accurate.
Okay, I personally think he is reading the words and he's got all his own biases, so he feels a certain way about it, and he thinks that maybe someone else might see it the way he does.
Right.
And I think there's some people apparently that agree with him. And
I used to
maybe, yeah, people are going to come and cover
I
it
used
and
to
give a
run
negative approach.
I used to
Sorry,
run a writer's lab for screenwriters, comedy screenwriters, and you would see this all the time with first-time writers. You know, they would put up pages, and the audience would be completely, you know, unconfused basically by what was going on. So it was obviously bad writing. So then they would try to give the, you know, it's like the audience gives feedback to the writer, and they would, you know, tell what the problems were, the conflict or the stakes or whatever. But the person would often jump into this mode where they would just want to correct you that you were reading it incorrectly. Where, you know, you just, everything is there on the page. You just, it's something happened with you when you read it that you didn't actually absorb the meaning that I had intended. I mean, obviously you got to go back to what you wrote to be able to change that. But I feel like there's a little bit of that going on with the Max situation. He's like, listen, I wrote this big thing, and you need to read it correctly. Like, let me explain to you how you read this thing and get out of it what I'm getting out of it.
He seems to change his position on it, because on the one hand he says, well, if you disagree with the article and you think differently about it, that's fine. But then he's saying he's written it so like a journalist will read it,
right,
and be convinced by it.
Right.
Well, it's like, to me, that seems to be inconsistent. Like, clearly you want it to be convincing to people. And then he's like, well, I've written it for parents and parents of people that watch Destiny and journalists. But then you think, well, that it's the format's no good for that. Who's going to read 100,000 words?
Can you imagine a boomer getting an email like,
yes,
hey, can you read this? Can you read this Great Gatsby linked manifesto?
Did you know your child
Online
is watching the
streamers.
streamer? Here, read this 1,000-page document on this person.
And you can't understand it without like an autistic amount of lore.
Yeah, like this is
about
like
streamer
that's
drama.
the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Oh my god.
I mean, I am
Jesus.
I am interested in the dynamics of the streaming situation. It is kind of interesting that Destiny has all of this control over what people are calling his orbiters. And it's interesting that Max is like, I'm going to organize a union of the orbiters, like a orbiters union where we all have specific rights about how people address us online in the Destiny subreddit, which I also think is just a complete misunderstanding of how internet culture works. Like, Destiny doesn't have control like a military commander over his audience. A lot of times, if he tried to exercise that control, I think they would probably rebel faster than any kind of, like, they're not trained in the way a military unit is trained. So, but Max seems to have this impression that Destiny could do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is some truth to maybe if someone is going on his stream regularly and wants to, you know, have favor with Destiny, they might have certain takes and certain perspectives. Like there's probably something in that. But I think Max applies it way too broadly and applies it to everyone, including people like Abba from Abba and Preach. Abba got a bigger YouTube channel than Destiny, and they seem to just be more so friends. And they even disagree sometimes on stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
like on Max.
yeah, I mean, the other thing as well, there are definitely people in Destiny's community who are very sycophantic and will parrot whatever the line is from Destiny, and it's frustrating to deal with, and you got to kind of ignore it as best you can or tell them to fuck off and get a grip. But you know, there's a lot of people in his audience that are happy to hear criticisms and are happy to engage with people who are being more critical of Destiny. So it's a mixed bag.
Abba gave Max excellent advice, and it totally fell on deaf ears. Max did not take that advice at all. When he told him, you know, if you were you should be interested in being nicer and wanting to influence people and growing a bigger audience. And Max was just not, he was not taking that to heart at all, which, I mean, at some level you have to win the audience over before you can persuade them. And Max kind of has this attitude that is just like,
he doesn't take advice. I mean, like I talked to him. My main piece of advice to him was that like credibility is important. Like the credibility of your witnesses and the credibility of you are crucial to people listening to you. And he was just like, no. And then he starts his article. Oh yeah, I'm the guy
destroying
who
his
thought the 11-year-olds
credibility.
were hot. Like, like you're dead in the water. It doesn't matter what evidence you have.
Yeah.
He doesn't listen.
Well, that's my chief critique of Max is that the things that Max wants to be persuasive on, he has zero credibility to be persuasive on. So I'm just like, yeah, same as you're saying, Doomer. He's dead in the water. You got to realize that that's the reality on the battlefield. And, you know, you say, okay, well, I can have credibility somewhere else. Like, I do think he could build some credibility as an artist. People seem to really like him as an artist, but
that's true.
Some sort of credibility as like this activist, it's like, nah, like there's too much dirt on you, man. You got to take that into consideration.
I mean, he should have handed it off if he thought he had something to a journalist or something. There's plenty of industry people, streamer, esports people that talk about this stuff. They publish articles about Rich Campbell of OTK is accused of sexual misconduct, sexual assault, whatever. But it just seems like, I mean, I hate to use the psych terms, but it seems like incredibly narcissistic of like, I've got to control this. I've got to release the article. I've got to do it all. But then, you know, even in like Harvey Weinstein's case, because I think he atted the Harvey Weinstein journalist on Twitter, which was very funny.
Oh my God.
This was right at the start. Yeah, he atted them.
Yeah,
like, try to get advice. But, you know, surely, like, if someone that was abused by Harvey Weinstein isn't going to come out and write an article themselves about it, a journalist is going to investigate and look into it and do journalistic due diligence, which I think Max broke on many various occasions.
Well, and I think part of the problem with the credibility issue, didn't this all start because Max was mad at Destiny for talking to Nick Fuentes?
Yes, that is the kind of root of all of this.
Yeah, because it's not like, to me, that makes the whole thing seem so spite-driven. It's not like, oh, you know, he discovered some fact about Destiny and it changed his perspective. It's like, oh, we just disagree on something, so I'm going to like try to destroy your career.
Yeah, I think that Max was concerned with the way that the subreddit was being managed, which is quite the sentence when you think about it. I mean, who fucking cares about a subreddit at the end of the day?
Well, that's right. He got banned from his Reddit. That's probably what pissed him off, right?
Yeah, that definitely had an impact. But, you know, I think there is a truthfulness to his feelings about it. Like, I think he feels the way he feels about it. But I think the bias comes from feeling negatively about it rather than being like, I'm going to destroy Destiny. It's like he feels righteously justified because Destiny is doing wrong.
Yeah, but it's more like,
obviously.
oh, because, you know, he had this whole fear that Destiny was going to turn people into all writers or something by being friendly to Nick, which, you know, it's actually like a tragic, hilariously dark comedy, because he basically destroys his relationship with Destiny over this Nick Fuentes drama. And then immediately afterwards, Nick Fuentes teams up with Ye and destroys his own credibility. So it's like, like Max's concern didn't even need to happen.
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, as in the article, I myself had concerns about some of the interactions Destiny was having with Nick. It just seemed a bit inadvisable to go for like chicken and waffles with the guy. But then when you get down to the meat and potatoes of what's the actual factual issue, I never thought that Nick was going to bring about the Fourth Reich by talking to Destiny. And I joked about a bit about this on stream, but in some ways I feel somewhat responsible for the Ye stuff because I was somewhat of an instigator for the conversation about Nick Prentes, which led to Max getting banned, which led to Destiny cutting ties with Nick, and then Nick eventually linked up with Milo and linked up with Ye. That probably would have happened regardless.
Well,
but it's
yeah,
kind of funny to think that I could have influenced the full potential Fourth Reich.
I mean, I'm sure Nick was like super thirsty when Milo called him to hook up with Ye. I think he would have done that regardless. People, they challenged the chicken and waffles thing, which I watched that conversation. I didn't have a problem with it. I don't think it specifically humanizes Nick in any special way. I mean, there's literally a part where like a guy walks by and Nick's like, "Are you Jewish or something?" And the guy was like, "Oh, I used to be a fan of yours, but now I'm kind of not." And Destiny like de-radicalized me. And like, to me, the only thing I think Destiny did wrong in those conversations was, he would afterwards, and I don't know if this is just because he honestly believed it or he was just kind of trying to keep facilitating these conversations with Nick, which were interesting, was he would kind of be like, well, is Nick really still a white nationalist? I don't know. It's hard to tell. Right. And then obviously, the Ye stuff comes out and it's all like, oh, okay, he's exactly the same. Nothing has changed.
No, Destiny's mistake was not showing Fuentes 21 Jump Street. That would have just solved.
It's true. That would have solved everything.
Well, the funny thing about the chicken and waffles thing is I was concerned about it quite a lot and privately to Max. But then when I watched it just before our conversation. There's a whole thing we can get into. We don't need to get into all the ins and outs of the drama there. But like I watched before the conversation, I watched it and I was like, actually, what I watched seemed fine. It didn't seem like to be that big a deal. And it's something that I guess is always the issue is you'll watch clips of something and you'll get a certain emotional state about it.
Yes.
But then when you watch the full context often, and this is something, I still struggle with today because you see something on Twitter, like I saw Nicholas Dorio shared a clip of something and I was like, fuck me, this is crazy. But then I watched the full context. I was like, yeah, this isn't as big a deal as I first thought. So, just another lesson of just watch the content, come to conclusions based on the full context,
Oh yeah, no, it's like so often. Yeah, very on Twitter. They'll prime you. They'll you read their tweet and it puts that idea, they inception that idea in your head, and then you see the clip and you're like, oh my God. And then you go back and you watch the whole thing and you're like, oh, wait a minute, it's not what that person was saying at all. They completely took it out of context. So I never trust or try to put any faith in clips that I can't actually find the full context of, which is why I'm not a big fan of Project Veritas, much to some people's
What do you think of all the white people getting beaten up by the black people then?
I think it's obviously selective bias.
Okay. I mean, obviously I agree, but I was hoping like something racist.
I remember like back in the day.
Almost got him.
I remember back in the day. Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have pulled the doomer and gone full racist. I remember back in the day, like before all the woke stuff happened, people would post all these fights online, like constantly. And you'd always see, white people attack black people attack white people, black people attack black people, white people attack white people. You see like this, like, it just, it's constant. And then all of a sudden now it's like, oh, you only see videos of black people attacking white people. I'm like, wow, did all the fights between white people and white people attacking black people change? Or is it just people selecting certain things to try to kind of frame things in a specific way?
I don't know if you felt like this as well. I'm getting off the topic we were discussing, but it just one day, all of a sudden I noticed there were so many clips of black people beating up white people. And I was like, where did this all come from? Like, all of a sudden everyone's posting these clips.
Yeah, it's an op.
Yeah. Or maybe it's based on my Twitter activity and it's telling me something about myself.
No,
I want to see racism.
Whenever I see those clips on Twitter, because I know exactly what you're talking about, that's what got Scott Adams in trouble. He started to see all these videos of black people beating up white people, and he's like, oh my God, it's making me racist. It's so funny because he would said that, but when I would see these videos on Twitter, I try to see like, wait a minute, who's like originally circulating these videos, and it would generally be like the same handful of accounts I'd find were circulating them. So I do feel like it is some kind of op. Some intentional thing like, oh, let's, just flood Twitter with all these videos of black people beating up white people.
From accounts like Race and Consciousness and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. Or the account that says like the good Jew, and then you click on it and you're like, I don't think this guy's Jewish.
Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch and Adams show. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our live show right here on this channel on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you want, you can super chat us. We read $20 and up super chats on the show and then do a follow-up stream on the following Tuesday where we read the rest of the unread super chats and interact with fans of the show. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to the live show or to listen to more of our awesome clips.